people could come back into the room, we're going to get started in a few minutes. Okay, we're all back being present, and we're live streaming again. This is the regular meeting, which I call to order. And what I'm going to suggest is we change the agenda in two ways. That we make the first item of business, we'll be bringing forward item which is now number 6, which is a presentation of our draft financial statements and audit findings. And we hear from our auditors, who I'm going to introduce in a minute. Immediately after that, we go to if I can call them the two marina, or the marina bylaws, there's actually 3, and deal with those. Because then at that point, we can do things like public participation, which then, assuming we've dealt with and closed off the issues to do with the public hearing, then we can listen to submissions if there's any people here who want that. So if anyone could make a motion
so moved
to approve the agenda with those 2 changes.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? None opposed. And it is once again my great pleasure to welcome Mr. Randy Decksheimer back. He's the office managing partner of KPMG here in town, who's been with us. How many years have you come and done this now?
A lot.
Quite a few. That's good. And then with him tonight is also Liette Bates-Emer, who's a senior manager also with KPMG. And Mr. Decksheimer will be making the presentation, and Ms. Bates-Emer will be here to answer any questions, I assume. Is that going to be the what we're going to do? Do we need to look at things up on the screens? No. Okay. Okay. Thank you very much, and welcome back. We look forward to hearing from you, and we do have in our agenda package many of the documents that you'll be touching on, including the financial statements and the audit findings report, along with a report from Ms. Carter, our Director of Financial Services. So we're on, for anyone watching at home, we're on item number 6 now. And I'm going to turn the floor over to you, Mr. Decksheimer. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Your Worship. I was going to speak directly to the audit findings report, which summarizes the work we've done and the conclusions that we've reached. The audit is complete. I'm pleased to have Ms. Bates-Emer here with me today. You mentioned I've been here for some time doing this, and it's important to have the next level of knowledge and brilliance coming along. We need more of that, of course, as you can probably tell. I'm pleased to present this report. We are complete with our audit.
Speaking to them just a little bit more because they can't hear you, apparently.
We have completed our audit. The report that's included in the draft package is what we refer to as a clean audit opinion. It's subject to your approval of the financial information tonight and our meeting to have this discussion and answering any questions or issues that you might raise tonight.
I'm wondering if you could just tell the people who may not be auditors what a clean audit report, the definition of that, what that means, or is that something you're going to elaborate on?
The purpose of the audit is to perform sufficient procedures to determine whether or not the financial statements that have been prepared by your management team present fairly the financial position of the district and the results of its operations, its cash flow, and its changes in net financial assets for the year ended December 31, 2016. And we've come to the conclusion that the financial statements do present fairly. The report that we presented to you is quite long. We don't meet with you other than through this process, so we want to ensure that all of the required and mandatory discussion and material that we're to have with you is in that report. I apologize that that's something that's occurred over time, the meeting of that audit standard, but it is meant to be comprehensive. We also report on 2 other matters for the district. One is the compliance with school tax. And the homeowner grants, the school tax payments this year, a couple of them were made late dates relative to the normal reporting, and so our report to the minister will identify those. Shouldn't be an issue. We also provided, and I wanted to talk briefly about a couple of other matters in our report, and that is some data analytics that we included in the back portion of our audit findings report. Some graphics and the data capabilities that we have now with historical information and computing technology enable us to do quite a bit of this. We're beginning to do more comparatives, et cetera, and to provide that to our various councils that we do audit work for. Maybe I might just comment on a couple things. One is that those graphs easily illustrate the spend that the district's made on capital, tangible capital assets has been quite significant. For 5 straight years, your capital spend has significantly exceeded the amount of amortization on those assets, and that's something we tend to look for. It shows that the infrastructure spend has been adequate, and it means your capital focus has been strong. We provide some fairly straightforward graphics on how your spend is, how your revenues are earned, and how they achieve the expenses that they're required to. You'll see that the taxation revenue has been fairly consistent, and your ratio of taxation revenue to overall is pretty consistent with most municipalities. The one area that the graphs clearly point out is that your government funding, your other government transfers and funding has been very low. And pleased to hear that that's changing now with some of the support for your sewer programs, but clearly you've been behind on being recipients of some of that funding. We comment overall on the financial position or performance of the municipality. One would probably say that you're okay. You have pretty healthy capital statutory reserves. You're about to spend a lot of money too, though, so that's important. Your debt level is actually quite low for a municipality of this size, and your financial balance sheet is strong because of that and the accumulation of those reserves. If there was a caution relative to your finances, that you have very little funds sitting in an unappropriated surplus position. So your flexibility in being able to go forward with any cash that's available relative to use as you might need or as urgent issues come up is pretty narrow. And you might want to continue to focus on adding to those non-statutory reserve funds. Just wanted to make maybe one final comment. This report's coming a bit later than it might in other years. You've only got a week before the statutory filing requirement for this material with the minister. It took a little bit longer. You have 2 new staff in the accounting finance area. I think our view is that they were extremely busy, very diligent, and worked with us to have a look into numerous things that maybe hadn't had a look at before for a while, and got their comfort level to where it had to be. We're pleased to see that. And I think it bodes well on having a team that appears to be very diligent and capable in handling the financial and accounting affairs for the district. Those are my brief comments on the audit report. I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thanks, Mr. Dexheimer. And just on that very last point that you mentioned, we're very fortunate now to have 2 certified accountants working on staff, and I think that's certainly we've seen a difference with that extra person make. So we're very pleased that you're supportive, and you can see the results also. So thank you for that. Let's see if there's any questions. Yes, Councillor Croft, please.
Thank you, Your Honor. I just noticed that on page 11 you have a typo. It says age instead of page, and I'm sure you don't want your report going forward like that. And I also noticed your comment regarding an employee code of conduct, and I wondered if you might elaborate on that finding.
Did you get the page 11?
No,
Yeah,
I
you
didn't.
saw that? I don't think we get a discount as a result, do we? If
It's a long report. Congratulations
It
on
can
finding that. I'm sure there's probably one or two others. On the code of conduct, many municipalities have been loath in a labor or organized environment to try to develop policy and procedure that acknowledges some of the responsibilities, particularly around technology these days, and really that's the focus. Many organizations are struggling to ensure that their security situation on their IT environment is adequate to maintain the integrity of it and to protect it from the hacking and other problems that occur with technology these days. Having staff understand their responsibilities around that, to concur that they take that responsibility and to sign on a regular basis that they follow the policy and procedures is being encouraged more as part of a strong process of being cybersecurity responsible in all organizations. It's beginning to creep more and more into the municipal area, and we encourage it.
Thank you very much. Any other questions? Yes, go ahead, Councillor Zelka, and then Councillor Kirby, please.
Thank you so much. Continuing on employee code of conduct, are you implying that other than Parks and Rec, there is no code of conduct currently? I wasn't quite sure amongst the wording you've described here. Can you please elaborate?
I'm not sure that I would be able to adequately describe what's in place throughout, but
Okay. Ms. Koning, please, our Chief Administrative Officer.
So it is something actually that the senior staff have been discussing probably over the last 3 or 4 months. And actually, I think it's something that you will see coming before you. So the short answer to Councillor Zelka's question is probably not an adequate one, or not a recent one, or not a comprehensive one. I think that what we are trying to do through our HR is starting with an overall respectful workplace. And I think that you're going to hear probably later from Councillor Kirby. I think she's going to follow up on some comments that she had made at a previous council meeting about sort of an overarching for our municipality. And I think it's going to start first with mayor and council in terms of respectful workplace. I think we want to have that not only just respectful to each other, but it's how we interact with the public. And I think out of that will flow even further work in terms of a list or a code of conduct. I know that many of our professional staff have codes of conduct that they follow from their professional organization, so through the engineering or through the planning groups or through the, help me out here, the accounting professions, yes. I was just trying to think what the actual name was, the CPA group. So that they follow those their own. But we don't have anything for our staff who may not belong to professional organizations, but for those who are associated with LGMA, because there's many of our staff that do, and there's a bit of a code of conduct there. But we're looking for something, I think, that's going to be a little bit broader stroked, and it's going to be for our entire organization.
Thank
Go
you. If I
ahead.
may, a quick follow-up.
Yes, please.
I appreciate the comments. Look forward to the discussion later. But with respect to the audit, we recently got a statement of reserve funds, and it seemed to take a while to get that nailed down. Now, this audited statement refers to the previous year, 2016. Now we get the statement of where we're at with our reserve funds, probably like after that. But is there any concern about our reserve funds with respect to this year? Just wanted to ask in general. It sounds like it's worked out in 2017, but I just want to ask about 2016 because it took a while for me to make sense of heads or tails of it.
I believe, Your Worship, through you, that there is an undergoing evaluation of the reserve processes, and we encourage that, the adequate documentation of that. I think this was identified last year as something that could use an opportunity to have some better policy and procedure around how they're utilized and go forward in a stronger way on managing the reserves, and I understand that's underway.
So if I may, through the
Yeah,
chair.
keep going.
Can I infer then that your comments from the previous year about reserve funds have been addressed in this audit, or that they're going to be addressed?
We have no issue with respect to the reserve balances and funds and transfers in the accounts for the current year. I think our comments that had been made previously are in process, appear to be underway, and we're comfortable that that's it. That we've had a couple of discussions on that with them.
Okay, Councillor Kirby, please.
Thank you. I just appreciate the comments. The raising the issue of about receiving grants from other levels of government is very timely, given that we've recently received some substantial grants, and they came as a surprise, I think, to everybody that we were successful in both applications. But so I did sort of in the summary beside those graphs, it says that that it's comparable, that the distribution is comparable to other local governments of a similar size in the Capital Regional District. Are you just saying that it hasn't been a significant, like I couldn't even actually notice that the bar is so small for the other level of governments. I didn't even notice it was there until you drew my attention to it, because it is 2%, and by comparison, it's almost barely on the chart. But now I'm curious: are other municipalities in the region receiving similar grants, or are they or similar levels of funding, transfer funds, or are we an exception to the rule?
I'd just be mostly on recall without having access to some of the data, but there are quite a number of local municipalities who receive government transfer funding much similar to yours, gas tax revenue being the only significant component. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? We're being recommended. Oh, Councillor Murdoch. Okay, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Mayor. And I guess in respect of time, I won't ask all my questions, but I got a couple of quick comments. Just really, first couple just for staff on this. I appreciate the report. It's hard to get through the comparisons of this year versus last year and where things line up, because, for example, the tax revenues listed here don't line up with our budgeted tax revenues because they're noted quite differently, and so they don't. It's hard to reconcile it. So either I think more time, maybe provide this a week in advance or something, so we can go through and do that analysis ourselves, or perhaps some sort of staff report that kind of ties it together to give some explanation would be helpful, I think. Again, there's no big issues being raised here, but I think that's just it's very hard to do our due diligence in terms of assessing this in the short time frame, especially when there's a big agenda on other items. And it's specifically around the taxation. I had one question because it has come up in past meetings, and I'm curious if it's all dealt with. It doesn't seem to be in the report, in the notes. There was liability raised in previous reports around the issue of contaminated sites when it came to. So are we looking at this audit not being raised as a risk, and here is that being sufficiently addressed then through staff actions and so forth over the intervening time?
Your Worship, through you. The contaminated sites issue had quite a bit of time and attention devoted to it in the last year reporting for 2015. As part of our process, we revisited that to make sure that there weren't any other apparent issues arise or that any of those situations had changed. So we concluded that they hadn't, and there was no need for further disclosures on that whole issue. But it's something that is attended to annually.
Okay. And the only other question I'll leave here today is just the uncorrected misstatements, where there's an agree to disagree sort of on these things. One of them is explained in terms of to adjust the current year revenue opening surplus by sewer deposits. That's explained in the body. I couldn't see an explanation for the other two, and I wouldn't mind just hearing a quick explanation of those two, with the record investments at cost rather than fair value, and to recognize deferred revenue relating to an event that occurred in 2015. That's page 11, page 3 of the of the attachment B.
Yeah.
Sorry, page 3 of attachment B.
Sorry, it's here. I don't have. I'm looking at it on my paper printout, so let me just dig it up on the actual electronic.
There was, they're fairly straightforward to explain, your worship.
Go ahead, please.
The investment issue is that most of the municipalities, and Oak Bay is one, that invests a substantial portion of their surplus funds with the MFA. The MFA has 3 different funds that are available, a short-term, an intermediate, and a bond fund. And they actually give you credit on a regular basis for the change in value of those funds, and the step up in value is recorded. Technically, the public sector accounting standards don't allow the reporting of that income until it's actually realized, i.e. cash converted or swapped out or withdrawn. And so that investment income issue is an accumulation of the unrealized portion. It's easier to account for it this way. Almost every municipality does, and the standard's changing. So in 2 more years, it won't matter, but we're obligated to report it. And this year, it just happened to creep over our reporting threshold, so we make sure we report all of it.
Thank you.
The deferred revenue item was a matter that was one of the cleanup issues that had been identified previously, and it was a late adjustment on the list. And when it came to finalizing the statements being the only significant issue, other than the discussion around the one revenue adjustment, it was determined not to be worth doing, and it'll be corrected this year. It goes back a couple of years. We reported it last year.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other questions? Seeing no other questions, we're asked to approve the financial statements and to receive the audit report. Correct, Ms. Carter?
Your worship, that is correct. Thank you.
So we're going to have that
Move
motion,
approval
please.
of financial statements.
Seconded.
Moved and seconded. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? None opposed. Thank you very much to both of you. And you're welcome aboard, I guess. Is that what you were saying, Mr. Decksheimer? You've
And the torch.
there you go. Thank you. We are now going to move to the item that was referred from our special meeting, and they were items 5, 6, and 7. Now, before we proceed, I'm going to ask a question of Mr. Jones in terms of the process. We have actually, there's 3 bylaws. We have, if I can call them, the public hearing bylaw and the non-public hearing bylaw as it relates to, in particular, the whale watching. Now, perhaps we can, maybe we should do the bike one first, and then I'm going to ask my question. All right, I see the order we're in. So we
I
have
move the third and final reading of bylaw 4686.
Second. Your worship, sorry, we need 2 separate, so one for third.
2
and one
separate
for
motions.
final.
That's right.
Sorry.
So a third reading
Third
first?
reading.
Okay.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? None opposed. Now the final
Move
reading.
final reading, bylaw 4686.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. All in favor? Opposed? None opposed. All right, so we now move on to the whale watching, which has 2 bylaws. The first one is a zoning bylaw, which was subject to a public hearing. And the second was the lease bylaw, Marine Oak Bay, which was not subject to a public hearing. We did hear some concerns about appropriate controls on this activity. Number of boats, entrant and egress probably away from the docks. Should council be interested in looking at imposing certain controls, how could that be done?
Your worship, my suggestion, if that's where council wanted to go, would be to give the zoning bylaw third and final reading, but not the lease bylaw. And if you were interested in talking about conditions, we could include those in a new bylaw and bring that forward to a committee of the whole meeting or something that you could then consider that at. So that would allow you to consider specific controls if you so chose.
Okay, so you would, if that's the way we go, you would come up with some options for controls and bring them forward to a committee of the whole where we can have public input and discussion on those controls.
Your Worship, yes, that's correct. But just like to step back just for a second, though. Just want to make it clear that those are the types of things that, as the marina entered into an agreement, if it were the marina, to work with an organization, those types of things would happen. But if there is a desire for council to make it clearer for the community. I mean, I think one of the examples you gave was a good one. Entry to and from the marina itself. You know, we would want to make sure that came from the breakwater side, that didn't come around the other side. And there are other types of things like that we could consider. But if you want to see those, we could bring back the lease bylaw for you.
Okay. So that is one way of dealing with that, the issue that we heard raised, that public wants some more discussion and input. You've heard an option. So if that's the option that we choose, then I would ask for a motion for third reading on the zoning bylaw, please.
Move third reading of the zoning bylaw.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. Now, discussion. Okay, Councillor Murdoch, please.
Thank you. Through you, Chair. There's I guess two aspects of this that part of this bylaw. One is allowing uses of the Turkey Head parking lot behind that of the parking alone, which I think we've had great discussion on and agreement with. And then there's part two, which allows tours for whale watching to be offered out of the Oak Bay Marina. And I went through, I think it was raised quite clearly at the public hearing that a lot of people were sort of unaware this was included and hadn't had time for consultation. And frankly, it came here, and I thought that it had come through sort of committee of the whole, and when I was away on vacation, and this discussion had been had, and it seems like this has caught everybody a little bit by surprise that it wasn't either being driven by an ask or anything else. Is there any other way of divorcing those two aspects on this particular motion, where we just bring back the issue of whale watching to a future committee of the whole or what have you, either when there's an application for it or when staff feel that they've completed sort of the due diligence and so forth to come back? I have a hard time. If I was reasonably looking at our bylaws and it explicitly said that it allowed whale watching out of this marina, I think I would go in the presumption that it would be okay. And I don't necessarily feel comfortable that I've thought through this issue far enough to say that that is an acceptable use of the marina. So my question to staff is there anything we can do within this process not to delay the temporary use of Turkey Head parking lot portion of this, but not move forward on the allowed tours for whale watching?
So, Your Worship, the answer to that is yes. You could, if it were the will of council, you could actually delete that particular section from the bylaw. I'll find it for you, but there is a clause specifically. So you could amend the bylaw at second reading to take out the issue of eliminating the whale watching. So yes, you could do that. The one thing, though, to be aware is that we wouldn't simply will be required to go back through some type of a public hearing process. And so my suggestion was you could still have an opportunity for public to comment on the lease portion, on the whale watching if you dealt with the lease through the leaseway, but then you wouldn't find yourself in the situation of going through a further process later on down the road.
Go ahead, Councillor Murdoch.
So I guess my suggestion on that one would be that if council's in agreement that we want to deal with that more thoroughly, my comfort would be that we make those amendments. I think my question would be: is there any event coming up in May that would cause an issue with us actually not passing the parking lot use bylaw in time? Because I think that's an important piece that we seem to have agreement on going through. Because I don't necessarily want to be going through here and making amendments on the fly to the bylaw. Is it possible just to refer this back to, so that it comes back and we would have a sort of for most of our minor amendments that have gone through a process, to have a public hearing preceding our regular council meeting? We'd have the revised bylaw in front of us at that point for approval at the next council meeting. That's a more comfortable level I would have with that we'd actually see the bylaw changes instead of trying to find all the wording on the fly.
There was a question, yeah.
Yeah, so in the bylaw, there is a section 2 that says tours for whale watching. You would simply, if you wanted to deal with the parking lot only, you would amend the bylaw by deleting section 2 and then giving it third reading as amended.
Yeah, I think the earlier suggestion certainly was cleaner and easier to deal with, so we would deal with the issue of whale watching guidelines through the second bylaw. I think that's a more efficient way to do it, but that's only my view. So right now, we don't have a motion on the floor. Councillor Kirby, with the motion we have on the floor is for third reading.
Okay, I'm not, so we have to deal with that before we move on, because I prefer to do it the way that was originally suggested by
Yes.
Mr. Jones.
So that's what we're doing now. So we would pass third reading, then we pass final, then we would defer the second bylaw. Then,
Your Worship, that's correct. In fact,
Please.
it would be good to actually pass a resolution after
Yes.
that one, directing staff to come back to a committee of the whole meeting with suggested conditions around the permit, or sorry, the lease.
okay, thank you. Councillor Zelka, please.
Thank you, Chair. I wish to support, in general, the idea put forward by Councillor Murdoch. I'm uncomfortable moving forward with item 6 in total because it did not make it to the committee of the whole. I was actually very surprised and taken unawares. I went back through all of the various reports and I saw that this item, I don't know how, it missed committee of the whole, but unfortunately it didn't seem to make it there. So
Okay.
I would like to see maybe 6 either not approved. I'd be fine to move ahead on 7 with that number 2 deleted, or maybe dealt with more in an appropriate way.
Okay, right now we have the motion on the floor is for third reading. Okay, Councillor Murdoch.
I guess that, so with the, I'm going to make this motion so we can debate it. I would move that section 7.2 of Schedule A be removed, the item 2 on the bylaw changes piece here. That would essentially pass everything through with the exception of the approval of tours for whale watching.
Thank you. So, is there a seconder?
I'll second, but are we on, is that step 7 or is that 6?
It's number 6. Number 6
Number
has a
6.
bylaw which explicitly allows tours for whale watching to be included.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
I'm
So-
saying we should
so-
remove that portion of this from the bylaw.
So you're talking about 4689 or 4688? Sorry, I'm trying to keep up.
4688.
88, but item number 7 on the agenda. Are we on 6 or 7, Chair? I'm sorry, I'm lost.
Yeah, I think you have to be a little, so we're all on the same.
So 4689.
So what bylaw are you, right now, the bylaw that's before us is 4689 on third reading. Okay?
So, if I may? Or, sorry,
Well, hang on. I haven't got a seconder, so on this one yet. So there's no seconder.
can I have the motion again, please, from Councillor Murdoch? I'm not quite sure what the motion exactly was.
Okay, so bylaw 4688, attachment 1, proposes 2 changes. So this would be to strike the allow tours for whale watching to be offered out of the Oak Bay Marina, item number 2 of the 2 pieces. Oh,
Okay. Councillor Murdoch has.
sorry,
the
there's
floor.
also in the report, it calls it 4866. So I'm now moving around to my my little bit confused. I'm on item number 6, number 5.
Your Worship,
Number 6,
Yes,
sorry.
perhaps you can help Ms. Jones.
I
Please.
apologize for interrupting. The motion that's currently on the floor is with respect to the zoning bylaw considered at the public hearing on May 3rd. That would be bylaw number 4689. Your Worship, through you to Councillor Murdoch, I'm wondering if Councillor Murdoch is referencing bylaw number 4688, which is with respect to amending the lease. Section 2 of bylaw number 4688 states Section 7.2 of Schedule A to bylaw number 3736 is amended by deleting tours for whale watching. And I'm wondering if perhaps Councillor Murdoch's intention had been to potentially strike that subsection from the bylaw with respect to the lease as opposed to the public hearing bylaw.
I honestly don't know at this point. Sorry, my apologies in terms of getting turned around this one. Part of it is that 4689 is first on the agenda, I guess, and I've just got them, I may have had them reversed in my notes here. I guess the bylaw wording, I'm going to go back here. Item number 6, right? Correct? Bylaw 4689.
We have that at third reading at this point.
Yes. So I'm just going to go to the bylaw that is attached, attachment 1. Okay, I see. It's fair enough. It's called for. It says under item number 6, the attachment has an attachment 1, which is called bylaw 4688. But the entire report refers to 4689. So I'm reading this under 4689, but it's actually 4688. I didn't read the name at the top of the attachment under 4689. So correct, this is under the schedule of the lease. So that's fair. Thank you. So in that case, I don't have a seconder. I don't think we need to change it because there's no specifics on the bylaw change. So it's okay to deal with it, the lease.
Okay. So we have no amending motion on the floor. We are at third reading. Are we ready for the question? Councillor Zelka.
Yes, I just wanted to clarify. We are talking about item 6, 4, 6, 8, and 9, and we're talking about an item that didn't go to committee of the whole. So I will be voting against this this item. Thank you.
Thank you.
May I just have one moment, just because that
Okay, well,
attachment
while you
was
have
on-
that one moment, we'll hear from Councillor Croft. Were you going to say something? Oh, okay.
Okay, it's okay. I'm going to vote against it too. I prefer our bylaws to match up with the lease, the documents, and so forth. I would prefer that this was actually maintained in the bylaw, but there we go. Thank you.
Okay. I'm going to support the third reading. I think the better way to do it is to work with 4688. It's cleaner and simpler, and it achieves the same purpose. And it does get us to committee of the whole. It does get us a meeting with the public. All right. I'm going to call a question. All in favor? Opposed? Councillor Murdoch and Zelka opposed. Okay. Can I have a now?
Move final reading of
thank you.
4689.
Seconded.
Okay.
No, 4689, final reading.
Okay. So we have that. That's appropriate. All in favor? Opposed? Councillor Murdoch and Zelka opposed again. Now we go on to the next one, and this is the one that should council agree that we refer back to staff for a report on the potential or optional guidelines and how they can best be achieved within this bylaw.
Motion
And
to
that
refer.
Yep, and that report would come back to a committee of the whole, which then hopefully could be advertised, and people would be able to come to that. Okay.
Second.
Thank you. And there's agreement. Okay, moved and seconded. Discussion. Okay, go ahead, Councillor Braithwaite, please.
I mean, I'll support if this wants to be referred, but to me, I think that the applicant for this, or the Oak Bay Marina in this particular case, they would probably work within a reasonable expectation of what we would have for the municipality. I don't think that they're going to do things like have too many whale watching tours come in, or do something that will not be conducive to a good business decision around the marinas, as far as which side the whale watchers would come in, or disrupting neighbors or anything like that. So I would have been very happy to support this at final reading, going ahead tonight. However, I think that around the table it sounds like there's going to be support for it to be put back to the public. So that will probably be what happens. But I would have supported it moving ahead tonight.
See, I don't disagree with you, Councillor Braithwaite. I think, I mean, we know that Oak Bay Marine Group are very responsible in working with staff. We would work it all out. I think what we're trying to deal with is the concerns of the public, that there's not enough public and council oversight. And I think we can achieve both the good corporate citizen working with our staff and that community oversight. So I think it's a good balance in that way. And when we may well hear good ideas at a committee of the whole public meeting of that sort, some things that we haven't thought about. So, Mr. Jones.
Your Worship, I'd be happy to take this back. I think I agree that this will be operated in a very professional way. One thing I should have included in my report was a little bit more information about the regulatory environment that this type of business operates in. It is incredibly regulated. It's Fisheries and Oceans Canada, Coast Guard, Ministry of Environment, Transport Canada, and our own Oak Bay bylaws, so that they do operate in a very heavily regulated industry. And that, you know, to be honest, that would be a good thing for the public to be aware of. And in hindsight, something I should have had included in the report.
Yep, I think it's a good opportunity to educate too. So I'm going to call a question. So this is the question to refer that bylaw to staff or report to come back to committee of the whole. All in favor? Opposed? None opposed. Thank you very much. Look forward to that. Thank you very much to the Oak Bay Marine Group. I know you came here early thinking we might get this at 6, right? Forget it. But at least it's not 7 hours. Okay.
So just to be
Councillor
clear,
Braithwaite.
does that also mean that they won't be able to do activities on Turkey Head as well
No,
right now?
no,
But they
that's
can
been-
go ahead with that, correct? Okay.
That's was
Good.
part of that, right? All right, so now we're back on the agenda, and we're going to go through the item numbers. The first item number is 1, which deals with adoption of the minutes of the budget estimates March 15th, April 12th, April 19th.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Not opposed. Now the minutes of council, April 24th, please.
So moved. Approval.
Moved
Seconded.
and seconded. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Not opposed. Now, finally, the special council meeting.
Move
on
special
that same
council,
date.
April
Thank
24th.
you.
Seconded.
Thank you. Moved and seconded. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Not opposed. Thank you. Now, my remarks. And you're probably all thinking, at this time of night, I'm going to be very quick. Well, you know me, I can be also slow. For the record, I want to wish Shirley Tucker a happy birthday. I attended her 100th birthday party up at the University Club, and brought her a letter and presented her with one of those great designer mugs that was designed by Councillor Murdoch. She was absolutely thrilled. And of all the people who sent her letters, the Queen, the Governor General, the Premier, the Governor of California, I was the only one who was there personally. So at least I got that up. And so, yeah, she's been a long-time resident of Uplands and just a delightful person. That's item number 1. Item number 2 is just a reminder for everybody, we have a vacancy on the Advisory Planning Commission and on the Advisory Design Panel. For the panel, the 2 available positions will help select recipients of the Alan Cassidy Recognition, Renovation, and Building Achievement Awards, also known as the award with the longest name. And that closes this Friday. So if any of you on council or in the audience or at home want to, or know someone who wants to apply, please just remind them of that. Special council meeting also coming up on May the 11th at 8 a.m. So because we have to finalize the budget, which we're looking at tonight for a number of readings, but we have to have a separate day to bring it to final adoption. So that will be the financial plan, the focus there. And I think that's the only one we're going to have that morning, right? Well, that's the only final adoption, yes, on that one. Okay?
Your worship will also have the tax rate bylaw. And
Oh, yes, but related,
Yes.
all to do with the tax.
That's
rate.
correct,
Yeah,
yes.
okay. Then just a very quick note about the Commonwealth Games. We had the local local government politicians or their representatives met with David Black. You may remember on this issue, you may remember about 2 years ago, we as a council thought it was worth pursuing being the backup city at that time, because there was some talk that Durban, South Africa, was not going to proceed. As it turns out, about a month and a half ago, sometime in March, Durban did announce it was not going to hold the games. So we reconvened based on that letter, and work is now going to proceed in the next week or so, just gathering some information. At this point, Mr. Black is leading it, but if there is interest, then there will be a new committee struck to put it forward. Very, very tight timeline. We have to have an expression of interest. We're not clear at this point how much details we would require for an expression of interest, but there has to be significant, probably by the middle of June. So we also, 5 of us, a quorum of council, on Saturday went and opened the Lawn Bowling Club, a great community amenity that we have there. And in fact, half of the club was out tonight at this afternoon at the 100th birthday. So it really, it's a supportive group. And I think also, too, we've had other events which have been great success. Royal Victoria Yacht Club opened the week before. We had the Jane Jacobs Walk, which was, we thank the Community Association of Oak Bay for organizing that 4 great walks. I hosted one of them here to start, because it had to do with those monuments that were put up for First Nations. And of course, special thanks to the Rotary Club, who are out painting the water park. It should be all ready for the kids to use the first warm day they have. Although knowing kids, they won't wait for the warmth. All right. Those are my short announcements. Thank you very much. We next have public participation period. It's a 20-minute period we allocate to people who come forward and have up to 3 minutes to speak on a topic relating to Oak Bay. I'm looking for my cell phone. It's up here somewhere. And I will time, and when I say welcome to the speaker, I'm going to start the 3-minute timer. And then when you hear the beep, beep, beeping, please just wrap up your final sentence if you don't mind. All right. Thank you. Any speakers tonight? Any speakers? Any speakers? All right. Well, that 20 minutes went by like a flash. Thank you very much. And we now move on to the other items. First of all, well, we jump right now to number 7. Response to the heritage referral for property of the Community Heritage Registry at 2264. We did receive some correspondence on this, Ms. Jones. Okay. What's council desire on this one?
Move receipt.
Thank you. Moved. Was there a
Second.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? None opposed. Thank you very much. So that's the correspondence. Now, there's an issue of the temporary protection order, and whether or not council wishes to. I'm a little tentative here because I can't call this up on my iPad. Oh, there we go. I've been pushing the wrong numbers. Okay. Apologize for that. Okay. So, what's council's wishes in respect to the lifting of the temporary protection order? Councillor Murdoch, you look like you have your hand half up, and now your microphone on. That's all. That's
Well, I'm gonna.
good news.
I'll move that the protection order be lifted, and we can talk about it.
Okay.
Seconded.
Moved and seconded. Okay, go ahead.
I just
You
want to
have-
point out, because this was a subject of great debate at the Heritage Commission meeting, there was certainly no happiness about the notion of having seeing this house demolished. There's, as noted in the excellent letter by Ms. Sparks, the house has a cultural connection to the broader community that's very, very strong, and the house itself is of historical interest in and of itself. The recognition by the majority, very slim majority of Heritage Commission, was that this was the financial realities of this house sort of sitting on 3 lots, spanning them, that the value of the house on 2 lots with one narrow lot sort of off to the side was just really difficult for anybody to accommodate. And really, I think the votes in favor were just recognition that there was no saving this house, given its poor condition, and the financial realities of what that would mean to the community. So I just want to point out this, the motion was made and approved at that commission, but it was really with noses held when they voted for it. Even those voting in favor, especially those voting in favor, really had a hard time doing so. So these are one of the ones that make it very difficult for us. It's not the heritage, it's not designated, it's not legally protected. So for us to continue the protection order on this would mean that we are essentially going to force designation on the house in order to protect it, and then go through a very significant legal process with the owners to come up with some accommodation to save the house and to reuse the balance of the land and so forth. That is totally doable. That is within our purview to do it. I think we just we have the information in terms of the statement of significance. We have the letter from Ms. Sparks in terms of the cultural history. It's a difficult one, frankly, to let go, because it does have such community significance. So I just want that background there.
Okay.
I'm having a hard time supporting the lifting, but at the same time I recognize the reality of the situation. It's tough to force it.
And as our liaison to the commission, we appreciate that feedback that you've given in the report. Any other speakers? Okay, Councillor Zelka, please.
Thank you, Chair. Reluctantly, I'd have to support this, only because of the state of the building. I do wonder if it might be appropriate, just because of the cultural significance and the great contribution to British Columbia by not only Dr. Davy, but also his family, whether some sort of a plaque or some sort of a insignia or something could be placed on the public domain, on the public boulevard near the house to remember the spot, similar to what was done for the school at I think Roslyn and Windsor.
Okay, that's probably something that the commission could look into.
Well, actually, that was discussed at the commission. I think they described it as a tombstone for the building. Tombstone with background. Yeah, it's tough when the house is gone to have a piece there. It's possible it could certainly be something to be considered. But certainly the one at Roslyn, it's in front of a house that still exists. So it's a pretty significant difference between what's been gone and what's still there.
Okay. Thank you very much. Yeah, I think we're ready for the question. Councillor Croft, please.
Through you, are we allowed to know what's proposed to go on these 3 lots once this home has been removed, or is that not within our purview?
Mr. Thomason can answer that question. These are 3 pre-existing lots?
Yes, so actually with the register bylaw, technically there is a clause in there that the Director of Building and Planning will withhold the demolition permit until actual house design is provided and ready for issuance.
Okay.
So the house will not be demolished until some house plans come forward for building on the lot.
But unlike when you do subdivisions, Mr. Thomas, in those circumstances, when you do a subdivision, there's often a covenant to require approval as to architecture and siting, correct?
That's correct.
This, because this isn't a subdivision, because this was done, I don't know when this would have been done.
There wouldn't be any
There
covenant.
would be no covenant on it. So when would this have been subdivided? In the 30s? Is that what you said, Councillor Croft? Or?
I don't know what year the
Likely,
subdivision.
likely a long time ago. Yes. All right.
Thank you for that. Ready for
Okay,
the question.
thank you. Anything else before we call the vote? Councillor Kirby, please.
I'm just curious as to why. So we don't have any input or say on what results on those 3 lots, what development it is. So why would we delay on the demolition permit if we have no input on what is built there?
Mr. Thompson, what's the policy reasons behind that?
Well, I believe the reasons behind that are similar to the tree protection bylaw, where we don't allow for the tree cutting until the house design is complete. So essentially, the house gets demolished and then we don't know when a new house may be built there. It could exist for 5 years as a vacant lot. But it's really just for the applicants to follow through with what they intend. So in terms of the tree protection bylaw, the trees don't come down until actual house design is approved and everything, and then issued, so that we don't lose the trees for no reason. So similarly, we don't lose the house for no reason here.
Okay, Councillor Braithwaite for the first time.
I think that would be kind of like what happened with the Oak Bay Beach Hotel. We allowed that to be taken down, and then we had a blank lot there for a number of years. So I think that's probably a good thing to have, not be allowed to be demolished until we see the house plan. So.
Okay, Councillor Murdoch. I'm keen to call the question.
Yeah,
I
no,
see
I
Mr.
just-
Collins has his hands up
I
too.
think the reality of the situation is that this will be lifted, and I think that's probably appropriate. I'm going to just register an oppositional vote here because, unfortunately, because we don't keep minutes of our conversation, I want to make sure this is clear that this is not an easy or a straightforward decision in this case. So thank you.
So you make the motion, then you're going to vote against your own motion?
And,
Okay.
and I think that it's important to note that, I mean, our archivist has written a very compelling letter to that regard as well. So.
Okay. Mr. Collins, not being a member of council, you're not generally invited to the debate, but do you have some information that could shed the light on the motion as to lifting?
It's more to do with
What's going to go on there?
retaining the house until
Okay.
the permit is brought.
Okay, you're going to need to come to the microphone, but I want to ask you this: has it anything to do with the lifting of the protection order?
No.
Okay, so I'm not going to hear you on anything else because that's the only issue before us.
Okay.
Okay, and that the other issues will come back to council at another time if there's something we can get involved in. Okay. Call a question. All in favor? Opposed? Councillor Braithwaite's opposed. Councillor Murdoch and Councillor Zelka. Okay, thank you. It passes. Thank you. The next one is a request for an addition to the Community Heritage Register, and that's an application for 2390 Oak Bay Avenue to go on the Community Heritage Register. Are the applicants here?
Recommendation.
The applicants? Well, we thank you very much for doing this. Thank you.
Second.
Moved and seconded. And this is the Harrison House, the F. Hamilton and E. Harrison House. And then we have a little picture in the statement of significance. All right. So, any questions, discussion? Okay, all in favor? Opposed? Not opposed. Thank you very much, and thanks for coming forward with that. And how long have you been in that house?
Less than a year.
Yeah. I came to your house very recently with the welcome wagon package and a book about the heritage of. Hopefully, that's what turned the tide, did it? Yes. So thank you very much for doing this. Your community appreciates it, and council appreciates it. It's wonderful. Thank you. And we also appreciate the people who did the statement of significance. I don't know who put that together. Is that the commission? And how was that put together? Do we know? Ms. Jensen?
Joint effort between the Heritage Commission and the Planning Department.
Okay. Thank you very much to both parties for putting that together. All right. Authorization to attend represent Oak Bay is number 9, so I can go to their annual general meeting.
Move the authorization.
Okay, thank you. Moved and seconded. Discussion. Yeah, go ahead, please.
I just think maybe you might ask them to change counselor to mayor on page 8 of the document. where it says Councillor Jensen?
Well, that's an old document, ain't it? I guess they haven't really brought that up. I didn't even notice that. That was from the days when I was vice chair as a councillor on that particular CREST board. All right, with that little typo noted back to them, all in favor? Opposed? None opposed. Thank you. Advisory design panel, the minutes of April 7th for receipt.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. Discussion. Yes, go ahead, Councillor Murdoch.
This is just a generalized comment, because one of the things that comes through there is the very lengthy discussion around one application with the changes to it, the pre-approvals, discrepancies. That's coming back to committee of the whole, so I won't talk about the specifics of that application, but it just raised my awareness of the fact that I think we as a council and the staff kind of have to figure out a way to find a process here to kind of, as I haven't gone through a renovation, there's always little changes that happen in the course of those things, that there's some sort of process that allows us, the applicant and staff and council, to kind of, make those changes in a reasonable way, in a reasonable timeline, because this sort of things happening and coming back to us is not acceptable. But we also have to make sure that we're not being unreasonable in our ask. So that caught my eye, and I thought I'd just raise it in this context.
Thank you very much. Any other points? Go ahead, Councillor Zelko. This is on receiving the minutes.
At item 10, ADP, correct?
Yes.
Thank you very much. So item 5, within the minutes, I wanted to ask a question about the panel comments. I didn't quite understand, and maybe staff would be able to complain, or would be able to explain.
This is under new business to do with 3355 Midland?
Yes. Panel comments, second paragraph, near the end. It says, he also commented this is a Part 3 building, so driveway is 5 meters wide. What is a Part 3 building, please? Could you clarify? Staff, please.
Part 3 is essentially under the building code as a complex building. So anything over 600 square meters in footprint is considered a Part 3 building, and this building is that large. So it's complex building, and then full professional involvement is done with architects, engineers, right down the whole line.
Yep, thank you. Anything else? All in favor? Opposed? None opposed. Next is the minutes from the APC, Advisory Planning Commission. Moved and seconded. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? None opposed. Council Strategic Priorities, which have been worked, reworked, and then worked over again. This is just to receive them. The actual, if I can put it in air quotations, approval will come with the budget. That's what aligns with our priorities. So a motion to receive that, please.
Move receipt.
Second.
Moved, seconded. Discussion. Just all in favor? Oh, yeah, go ahead, Councilor.
Just a quick question. Do we need to receive the correspondence attached as well, or is that?
I think we're going to receive all the documents there. Okay.
That's good. Perfect.
So
Thank you.
that's what I took as the motion. Okay. Any other points? All in favor? Opposed? None opposed. Oh, you're opposed. All righty. Thank you very much. This is just to receive it, not to approve it. Okay. Number 13, which is correspondence to be received.
Move receipt.
Seconded.
Seconded. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? None opposed. Thank you. New business. Any new business? I have no report from the CRD. The meeting's coming up this week. Any other verbal reports? Yes, please, Councillor Croft.
I just wanted to let my fellow councillors know that both Councillor Naya and I attended the annual general meeting of the Royal McPherson, and after that I attended Tourism Victoria, and that's my report.
Thank you very much. There's nothing this council enjoys more than succinctness. Or maybe, well, the other thing we do enjoy more is finishing within half an hour, but that's a rare occurrence. Okay, any other verbal reports? Councillor Zelka, please.
Thank you, Chair. You touched upon the Jane Jacobs walks that happened this last weekend through the Community Association of Oak Bay. Jane Jacobs was 101 years old this year. I just wanted to add that additional fact. So it was in celebration of her centenary. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And these were walks that were done in a variety of places right across Canada. So we move on now.
One last thing, I just forgot to remind people that this is Bike to School Week. and at Willows Elementary School. And so encouraging all parents and kids to, as well as teachers and staff, to cycle to the school, and grandparents, not to be exclusive. And also just a reminder to everyone that there will be the bike trains on Thursday morning with the assistance of the Oak Bay Police. So right after our meeting to adopt the budget, the 5-year financial plan, we will head out the door to lead the trains.
And that will also explain why I will come to that meeting in biking gear, because I'm going to be kind of helping out there too and be part of the bike train. At a council meeting, we don't expect to take long because it is really a kind of just an adoption, a formality. All right. So item 5, and so no other new business? Okay, no other new business. We move to resolution notice, council code of conduct. We have that before us. We have had notice on the last meeting, so we're at this point ready for it to be moved and possibly seconded. Go ahead, please.
I would move that, do I have to read the whole thing, or should I just read therefore be it resolved that staff be directed to prepare for final consideration a council code of conduct.
Thank you very much. And I understand there's been some kind of talk amongst staff already, and it's very apropos in terms of the timing. AVIC, Association of Vancouver Island Coastal Communities, what's been happening, and also too what's been happening on the staff side, because there's not only council to council conduct, but there's council to staff, staff to the public, staff to staff. So we're going to try to capture a lot of that. So do we need any discussion on this, just giving this direction to staff? Okay.
I think just for help for clarification, if that's all right.
Murdoch.
I guess, I mean, first of all, not a big fan of legislation on behavior. It's non-binding, I would assume, and so it's just sort of I guess my question is the direction to staff to come back with a more general, sort of be nice to each other in the public, or is it, more detailed in terms of focus on the issues being discussed, not personalities, respectful business language, that sort of level of detail that's being asked for here?
Okay, so can staff kind of give a sense what we might expect to see, and whether or not you need anything more specific, I think, is the embedded question.
I think that actually it's a one-pager. It's not a long explanation. It's, I think, just some principles, and it's a reminder. I think you'll see a lot of places now, just even simple signage about that this is a respectful workplace. I think it's just a reminder. The actual code of conduct is something that's relatively short and sweet, but it's about principles.
And I think there's others who've already gone ahead of us inventing that wheel, so we can rely on other communities that have gone through this before.
So I would support it with one pager.
Okay, so is there a need to discuss it further? Because I get the sense this is going to pass unanimously. Is it something that we need to put on the record this time? Go ahead, Councillor Zelka, and then Councillor Kirby. You'll have the final word.
Thank you, Chair. I am also not a fan of creating legislation with respect to behavior. This was a book called Robert's Rules of Order that I had a chance to get to know quite well as a teenager, from the various groups, whether it's Scouts or the university groups, or every single group I've been involved with after that has all used Robert's Rules of Order. Within our procedures bylaw, we have references directly to Robert's Rules of Order. And I see this particular manual, and its many incarnations that have stood the test of time, as being specific direction to you as the chair, to us as members, with respect to our expectations. And for those of us who step out of those expectations, you have the power to censure, to eject if necessary, to sanction within the rules of Robert's Rules of Order, to, shall we say, correct behavior. So I see many of the rules or the capability is already there to achieve what I think this is trying to address. I'm not quite sure. I can say that for myself, I am, as a professional engineer, I'm already ruled by the Professional Engineers Code of Ethics, which already asks me to be nice to all of you. Conduct myself with fairness, courtesy, and good faith towards others, clients, colleagues, and others. Give credit where it is due, and accept as well as give honest and fair professional comment, etc., etc. I'm sure lawyers probably have similar types of things. Those of us who are a member of the IEEE, that I know at least 2 of us on council are, Institute of Electrical and Electronic Engineers, they have a code of ethics saying almost exactly the same thing. Those of us who are webmasters or in the IT field, there's the Code of Ethics and Professional Conduct for the Canadian Information Processing Society. So many of us who are who have various ethics, I'm sure realtors, I'm sure possibly university folks may have some types of conduct and professional conduct things that we already have to basically abide by. What I'm concerned about is that this will step into an area that will restrict my ability to be effective and efficient as a representative of my constituents, of our constituents. For me to feel more comfortable with this, I would like to have maybe the word responsible conduct, or the word responsible added, or maybe professional conduct, but not conduct in general. What I'm worried about is that this is too broad and it steps into the personal realm. I would like it to stay in the professional realm and the responsible realm. So I would like to move a motion that the word professional be added in front of the word conduct, so that it would then say, prepare for council a consideration of a council code of professional conduct.
Okay. Is there a seconder? I just note that none of us are professionals up here in our role as councillors. Professional has a certain connotation, but in any event, the motion is now on the floor. Okay, go ahead. Let's debate the change in the addition of the word professional. I think we've...
Shall I speak first then?
Okay, I thought we'd...
If there
yes,
is a
go ahead.
concern about the word professional, the UBCM uses the word responsible. So
Okay,
I would be fine to consider responsible.
You made the motion, and you injected the word professional. We could withdraw the motion if there's consent, if you want to do that.
I would be open to withdrawing professional and replacing it with responsible.
Okay. Are we okay with that, staff? Just changing that wording, yes, they say okay. So the word now is responsible.
Where?
A code of responsible conduct, is that the same place? The word's in there?
Yes, as mentioned by the UBCM.
Council Code of Responsible Conduct, okay. There's a mover and a seconder. Did you want to continue to speak to the issue?
No, I think I'll pop.
Okay, Councillor Kirby, please.
I didn't anticipate any debate because I thought that this is a common understanding that we're just looking for something, a policy and a procedure bylaw that includes behavior because of the precedent we saw in Nanaimo and Lanceville, McBride, and several other places. But just to prepare this council for the modern age and to make sure that we were respectful of each other and continued a tradition of and a culture of respect and responsible behavior. I don't think there is this was a recommendation that came from the UBCM report that was presented to us at the AVICC, the Association of Vancouver Island Coastal Communities Conference this year. At the same time as Councillor Wendy Pratt from Nanaimo was resigning because of the chaos that has ensued there. This was a recommendation I thought that we could take to show that we are committed to responsible behavior inside and outside of the chamber with each other and with the public and with the staff. We often, issues get heated, right? The issues are very challenging sometimes and emotions run high, as we witnessed on Wednesday night at the public hearing. There was some very strong feelings, and strong feelings bring out sometimes poor behavior. And so having a council code of conduct that guides us, as well as sets an example and shows some leadership to the community, that we don't bully staff, we don't berate them in public, we are respectful when asking questions, we don't use profane language, we are kind and careful with our remarks rather than leaping to conclusions that anyone has any kind of I think we're all working together towards building a community that, for the right reasons, and that we remain respectful. So that's why I brought this forward. I want to make sure that we protect our relationship, we protect the relationship with the community, that we are able to continue a democratic debate of the issues without allowing it to get personal or become an individual attack, and the same with staff. We have an incredible staff that are incredibly supportive of us, and it's important that we respect them in public as well as when we work outside the chamber. So that's why I didn't specify inside or outside, because I think we're always counselors. We're 24 hours, we're 24/7, 365-day mayors and counselors. And so we need to remember that when we're out in the community, that we're always respectful, that we're not using disrespectful behavior to advance a political position.
Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask staff, because a lot of those things that you said are very relevant, but relevant to the code when we get there. We're not at that point. So I'm going to ask staff, does the word responsible, is that going to change what you bring back to us?
No, I don't believe so.
Okay.
But if I could add just one more item,
Okay.
it's also in the context of requirements under WorkSafe. And so I think that that's something that maybe a few members of council will recall. We went through a whole respectful workplace orientation session, and we're going to actually revisit that. So this is also something that's going to be legislatively required.
All right, thank you very much. And I think Robert's rules are great, but that's only one part of the conduct that we'll likely look for. Because I think we're ready for the motion now, trying to be as respectful as possible or responsible with respect to councillors and the time. Something new, Councillor Zelka, that you can add?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you very much. I'm under the impression that it's no secret on this council some of the public statements that have been made. The day of the election, if you recall in the newspaper, you were quoted with certain comments that were made in probably a political forum. In today's CFAX interview, comments were made by Ms. Kirby in public.
Okay, I'm going to call you out of order. This is to do with whether or not we put the word responsible in the amendment. And you're straying off topic at this point.
Oh, okay. I would like to see responsible then. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay. We're ready for the question. All in favor? Opposed? None opposed? Oh, one opposed. Councillor Croft. So it passes, and staff will now be responsible to bring back a responsible conduct of code of conduct. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much for bringing that
Your
forward.
Worship, I'm terribly sorry to interrupt.
That's the motion to amend. We're now on the main motion with that word changed. Any further discussion?
I'm glad we're getting to the question. I was actually prepared to vote against it because I was like, I don't want this to be a big make-work project for staff. And I would point out that the city of Nanaimo has an incredibly extensive guidebook for council, and so I mean this is no protection, but I do appreciate it. Short, sweet, good to go. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And I think we're going to get one or two pager. I think we're ready to go now. Councillor Zelka, anything new?
Yes, what I wanted to mention was that there's a number of tools already available to us that didn't seem to be recognized. When for those of us who were new councillors, the CRD or put on that incredible new councillor initiative with the new Councillor School. And what I loved was the fact that they went through Robert's Rules of Order, and there was a great discussion. I recall Tracy Lawrenson even taught it, about how we're expected to behave. I love the fact that we're supported stepping into this new role. I also love the fact that because of some issues that have been expressed in public about me, that I saw that AVICC in their leadership forum with respect to conflict engagement and communications, I took it upon myself to work on this conflict issue that was raised with me. And I feel so thrilled that there are tools available to us through AVICC and UBCM already, independent of this thing, if those of us who have eyes could see. That's all I want to say.
Thank you very much. I think we're ready for the vote. All in favor? Opposed? Councillor Zelka opposed. Thank you very much. We go to the bylaws. So we are going to, there's a memo, and we're going to go through first, second, and third reading of the first bylaw, and there's actually 4 of them. And we're entitled to have first, second, and third reading all in one go. So it's my intention, or should just we do first and second? You're right. Okay, I see the note here now. Thanks, Ms. Jones. So first and second reading together. Then at that point, I'll ask for comments from council, and I would welcome public input also. Then we would go to the third reading. All right, so first and second reading, please.
Move first and second reading of bylaw 4691.
Okay,
Second.
second, it's now on the floor. Comments or questions from council before we take public input, please? Go ahead, Councillor Murdoch.
Thank you, Chair. I have to just, so I am kind of sad to say I'm not going to support the budget in front of us today. Sometimes you have to hold your nose to vote for budgets, but this is actually the first time I'm going to be voting against the budget. And I think that the reason I'm doing that is I believe we need to make some harder decisions around the budget, to say no to some non-core spending, and to put some more significant funds towards infrastructure. You know, I'm okay, obviously, with debating the small items and having to this point by majority, but there's 2 items this year that make it hard for me to support. One was the addition to add against staff recommendations, to add the $184,000 over the next 2 years for secondary suites, again, without a community growth plan or a housing plan to create guidelines. I just find it's going to be a divisive project that's going to happen anyway with good planning. And the second reason is I just have a problem with the financial approach taken. Obviously, we voted 5-2 in favor of passing through the 3.8% increase and setting aside the gas tax money that was then brought back at the last meeting to move 1% from those monies from reserves into this year's capital plans, really for the only reason I can see of making it look like we're spending less money than we are. The reality is that the recommendation was to spend 4.8% by adding 1% to infrastructure, and this year we're not doing that. We're not setting money aside. We're taking a significant portion of our gas tax money and spending it this year on capital projects, and we're going to have to pay that price in the future. So I wish I could support it, but I can't. The funding increase this year for all of our operational and standard capital projects is 3.8%. It's not 2.8%. This is just, it's taking away, I mean, the net of this, not the 1%, and taking this over as a net cost to future taxpayers of around $400,000. So I think, you know, recognizing there's only one solution to our infrastructure replacement, we have to make the hard fiscal decisions. We have to prioritize infrastructures over pet projects and non-core projects. And I would be very proud to support a future budget that's a little bit more honest in reflecting our actual costs. I think we can have that discussion. You know, budget time, I think an honest government is just one of 2 things. It taxes more to provide more services, or it taxes less to provide fewer services. And I think we need to make that choice and not move the money around, in this case, to move it out from the reserves that we had agreed to and into this year's capital projects. We have a big wall coming, and I don't think this budget reflects the reality of that very well. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Braithwaite, I think was next. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I won't be as eloquent as Councillor Murdoch, but I'm also going to be voting against this because I feel very strongly and I'm in complete disagreement with the diverting the $203,000 from the Capital Structure Reserve Fund to the budget to cover capital projects. I don't feel like this is in the best interest of the municipality, and I can't support the budget because of that. We had a fulsome discussion, as mentioned, in regards to this estimates, and the majority of council were in agreement that we should not divert these funds, but keep them at the account, in the account until we do our asset management plan in 7 months. I'm not sure what happened between the estimates meeting and that council meeting to change the minds of a couple of the councillors, but I also feel that it's short-sighted for us to agree to do this, so I can't support the budget moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other speakers? Okay, Councillor Zelka, please.
Thank you, Chair. I was shocked when I found out that 1% of money was taken out of the asset management to deal with items. And that's different than what I had understood we had agreed to. I apologize for missing the last council meeting, but I don't quite understand what happened. So as a result, I will not be supporting this budget. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other speakers? Thank you. Go ahead, Councillor Kirby, please.
I take exception with that money was 1% was taken out of the asset management plan when in fact it's spending it this year. It's not taking the money out of the asset management plan. It's spending it on capital projects that we already had planned this year, that we were going to do anyways. It just means spending that money right now rather than putting it into the fund for later on. I think it's responsible to maintain your infrastructure every year, and I feel strongly that we're doing the right thing, and we will continue to do the right thing, as the auditors have suggested tonight, that we're on the right track with our capital asset management. So capital and asset management. So I think it's unfair to characterize it as irresponsible or that we're not looking after the future of Oak Bay or our assets carefully.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay. Just to see if there's any first-time speakers. Okay. You want to speak again, Councillor Murdoch? Go ahead.
Yeah, and I certainly don't mean any offense to any of the councillors. I think that this is, I think, a very reasonable way of interpreting it. The budget that we passed, which included capital projects, was being funded accordingly. It was 3.8% increase. The agreement that we came to at the estimates meeting was that rather than putting the gas tax money into the upland sewage separation, we were going to put that into the long-term asset management plan to deal with the larger capital projects. The change that happened was then to change that, because we were already funding that to out of the 3.8%. All that happened was not that we took on more capital projects and are using that funds for it. What we did is we shifted and changed. The majority of council changed their mind and said, no, it's okay. We'll just pull stuff instead of agreeing to set that aside. So you can split it any number of ways. I'm not trying to, accuse anybody of stealing. I'm just putting this in here of saying that to my mind, the responsible thing to do here is to maximize the amount of money we're putting aside to pay for sort of what I would consider run rate capital type projects, the sidewalks and so forth, and really set that money aside so we can use it for matching grant funding and so forth for some of the larger infrastructure projects, which is my understanding from the estimates process. So that was approved there. And I appreciate certainly Councillor Kirby, who I think quite rightly did vote to do that in the first place, but the majority of council did not. Thank you
very much. Councillor Braithwaite, please, second time.
Thank you. I just want to point out that in actual fact, the auditor did say, because I wrote down the couple of points that he made, and one was that we need to add to our non-statutory reserve funds, and that we are behind on funding. So because our funding our accounts are low, so it's good to hear that he was happy to hear that we're changing that. So I think those were 2 points that he made. I'd also like to make the point that this is the 9th budget that I've sat around this table for, and I have never, in those 9 budgets, seen people vote against a budget. I don't think I've ever seen anybody vote against a budget. And so this is shocking to me that we actually have 3 councillors sitting around the table who are going to vote against a budget that's before us. So that's kind of telling, I think, and I think we should be mindful of that.
Thank you very much. Councillor Selka for a second time, please.
Thank you, Chair. So I feel it's unfair to characterize any of the action that I take as bad or somehow judged. It feels like borrowing from Peter to pay Paul, to borrow a terrible analogy. and I don't need to be judged for this. This is how I view it. I thought we had an agreement at the estimates, and it feels to me like the agreement was broken. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? I'm just going to finish it off then. I think where we were at estimates, we got to the point where we had the increase of taxes at 3.8, very approximately. And there was a suggestion at that time that we use some of the gas tax money for more asphalt and extending the amount of monies we would pay on roads. Subsequent to that, subsequent motion went to take some of that money, not as much, but some of that money to rebuild the infrastructure now. The money that we received from the gas tax, which would be approximately $700,000, that's for infrastructure renewal. And that's what it's being used for this year. We still put $500,000 into the reserve fund, and we use some of it this year. And that's by using it in that way, instead of having a 4.8 increase, which was the way we were going, and certainly is the way that if we had gone down that road as suggested by Councillor Murdoch, we would be at 4.8, again, approximately. Now we're at 2.8. And I think it's important not to have a huge lift, a huge shock at any one year. We need to spread it out. And as far as paying taking from Peter to pay Paul, we are Peter and we are Paul. It's all our money. So it's not a matter of denying something down the road. We have to fix those storm drains. We have to fix that intersection at Thompson and Cadborough Way. We've known that for years. We were specifically given money on the gas tax to renew our infrastructure. How we use that is our choice. And do we then pay a whole bunch more now and put some in the bank? Well, we've done a little bit of it. We've put a lot in the bank, and we're using a little bit now. And that's to ensure that the lift on our residents is fair. We still have $500,000 in that account. We still have over $7 million in the Uplands sewer separation account. We heard we have excellent reserves. So I think this is, in fact, a responsible way to move forward, as to not all of a sudden load this year's taxpayers with extra increase. So in a few years, we could reduce the taxes on other taxpayers. So I think what we've done is responsibly said, we'll use some of it now to benefit the current taxpayers. We'll put some money aside to benefit subsequent taxpayers. So I'm going to call the question. All the third time? Councillor Murdoch?
There's a factual, you commented that my proposition would raise it to 4.8%. That is not correct. What was passed at estimates and what I sort of begrudgingly supported was a 3.8%, not 4.8%. This reduces it to 2.8%. And just to be very clear, the motion that was made was moved and seconded by yourself and Councillor Kirby, that equivalent to 1% of taxes be allocated from gas tax revenues to 2017 tax-funded capital projects. And that was what was defeated, and that's what was brought back and put forward. These were tax-funded capital projects, and what we're doing is we're taking from the larger infrastructure project, things that we know we're very far behind on. So I'm just going to leave it at that. Thank you.
Okay. And just on that factual question, well, we need a motion to go? No? Okay. Just in the factual question, we had not at that point put a 1% aside into the infrastructure as we had been recommended. So if we'd taken the recommendation by Ms. Carter, it would have gone to 4.8. So I think we're all ready now for the question.
No, Your Worship. We need public input.
Sorry. Public input, please. Okay, anyone wants to speak to the financial bylaw? Okay, seeing none, I think we're ready for the question. All in favor? Opposed? Councillor Azelka, Councillor Braithwaite, and Councillor Murdoch opposed. All right, thank you. We now go for third reading of that same, I'm just going to wake up my iPad here, thank you.
Move third reading.
Okay. Is there a seconder?
Second, sorry.
Thank you. All in favor? Opposed? Same three councillors opposed. Thank you. Now, my iPad is awake. We have the tax rates bylaw, which are number 18. And here we have the first, second, and third reading that can be done as one. Ms. Jones, thank you very much.
Move first, second, and third reading.
Second.
Okay, discussion. Okay, all in favor? Opposed? Same three councillors opposed, thank you. Now, the next one is Refuge Collection and Disposal Amendment Bylaw. First, second, and third readings, please.
Move for second, third reading.
Okay, okay, discussion. All in favor? Opposed? None opposed. Number 20, please, which is first, second, and third reading of the Boulevard Frontage Tax.
First, second, and third reading.
Thank you. Discussion. Seeing, okay, go ahead,
Just,
Councillor Murdoch.
sorry, just a curiosity. Do we have any information? There were some questions raised about the recovery rate of the Boulevard tax. Is that available to us yet, or is that just something for future consideration?
Through your worship, unfortunately, our parks manager has left already today, but I will ask him to follow up. Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay. And no other questions or discussions on this one? All in favor? Opposed? None opposed. Thank you very much.
Move adjournment.
Move adjournment.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? None opposed. Thank you very much. And we got finished before 10. I'm not buying. Forget that. I'm drinking, but I'm not buying.